All right, all of you have a card in front of you. So first step, if you haven't passed back the cards, go ahead and do that now. Step number 1 is to pick a card. Well, you have your card. And I randomly passed out cards. And what you're going to do is you're going to multiply the face value by 2. So if you have a 5, the face value is a 5. If you have an 8, the face value is an 8. But I had to define what a jack was, a queen was, and a king was, because if I didn't do that, most people would probably say, well, they're worth a 10. Well, if they're each worth a 10, how do you decide the difference between a 10 and a jack or a queen or a king? You wouldn't know. So I'm defining a jack to be an 11, a queen to be worth 12, and a king to be worth 13. And, obviously most of you probably would have, if you had an ace, would have thought that that face value was 1. So take your face value and multiply it by 2. Now you're in your packet here. You've got lots of extra room there. So I actually want you to do the trick. After you've multiplied your face value by 2, you're going to add 1 to that value. Then you're going to multiply by 5. And then next you will add the suit value. And I'm defining clubs to be 6, diamonds to be worth 7, hearts to be worth 8, spades to be worth 9. I didn't have to do that, but I just chose to do that. And I just went in alphabetical order to keep it nice and simple. All right, someone give me their ending number. Yes?
144.
Say that again?
144.
144, so you have a king of spades, correct? Yes? 52, so you have a 4 of diamonds. 32. Okay, so before I even read this one, or tell you what this one will be, I want you to start thinking about what they are saying or what you guys are telling me and what card I'm telling you that it is, to see if you can figure out what's going on. If you remember from the number tricks from yesterday, the math that I was doing in my head, a 3rd grader could have done it. And really the same thing is true today. So you said 32, right? So that's a 2 of hearts. I mean diamonds, sorry. Yeah, okay. 2 of diamonds. Yes. 23. So that is an ace of hearts. One more. 82. And I was hoping somebody would give me something that was incorrect just so I could use that as an example. But that one is correct. So that would be a 7 of diamonds. Right? Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any idea what I'm doing? You have the algebra in front of you in your packet. And it tells you what I'm doing in your packet. Most of you haven't read that yet. So here's the algebra for this, and then I'll explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. Just like yesterday, all of you have different cards, so that's variable. So we choose a variable. I'm choosing x. Then we multiply the face value by 2. Then we add 1, and then we add 5, or multiply by 5, excuse me. That is the distributive property. And now I'm adding on a new variable because I'm adding on a different number. So I'm just saying that that variable is SV. I know it's 2 letters, but it's still a variable. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the commutative property to rearrange things to make it a little more easy to see. So I have 10x plus SV plus 5. What I did in my head is I subtracted 5 in my head. I did the opposite of what we see right here. Because then what is left is a number that has a tens digit and a ones digit. Okay? So somebody gave me a 32. I subtracted 5 in my head, and that left me with 27. This was the card value. This was the suit value. Somebody gave me a 144, I believe. I subtracted 5 in my head, and I had 139. The 13 is the card value or the face value. The 9 is the suit value. It's that simple. But the question is, how do we create a card trick that gets us to that point? Well, it's pretty simple. But before we even get to that, we need to think about numbers in our number system. Our number system that we use is base 10. Okay? So if we have the number like 79, and we're still like at the bottom of that first card page, okay? And I know that this is not written down in the packet, but that's okay. And when we have the number 79, back a long, long time ago, you broke that down into 70 plus 9. Where 70 was 10 times 7, and 9 is 1 times 9. That's base 10. And so I'm trying to create a card trick that ends up with something like that. And then, of course, I had something extra, over here, plus or minus some other number. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create a number at the very end that will give me something like that. And that's what you have to keep in mind. And so what that means in terms of a card trick is we better have 10x plus something. If we don't have 10x, we don't have a number that's in base 10, and we can't figure out what we're doing. Okay? So from the last card trick, once again, we ended up with 10x plus SV plus 5. If you ended with a 62, I subtracted 5 in my head, the opposite of that adding 5, and we ended up with 57, which is 10 times 5 plus 1 times 7. So 5 was the face value, and 7 is the suit value. Okay? But before we even get into creating one together, we're going to do some practicing of the algebra. So could I get all of you to do the algebra for card trick number 1? Step number 1 of our algebra, of course, is variable. So we use a variable. Doesn't have to be x. Could be any variable you want. I'm going to stick with my same face values and suit values for all the tricks today. We're going to multiply the face value by 3. Then add 6. So far should be really easy. Multiply by 10. That's a distributive property. Add 12. Dividing by 3, once again, like we talked about yesterday, that's another version or example of distributive property. So make sure you divide everything by 3. Subtract 30. So far, everything should be easy. Now we're adding on a new variable, and I use SV, suit value. And so I put it on the end, and then I usually rearrange it using the commutative property just to put things in order, because it makes it a little more clear what I would have to do in my head to figure out what card you had. And I would have to add 6 in my head to figure out what card you had because of this right here, the opposite of that. And we talked about that in full detail with card or number tricks yesterday. Okay? So I want you to be clear on what you would have to do in your head to figure out what card the person that you're doing the trick with would have. Okay? Let's go to card trick number 2. Do the algebra all the way through. And I'm going to say this quite a few times today. Remember, we need a number to be in base 10. So therefore, when we are creating our own card trick, we need to make sure we have 10x in there. That's allowing us to create a number in base 10. And that will be the most common mistake that people will make, not doing that. All right, so let's take a look at card trick number 2. Take a card, that is a variable. Multiply face value by 5, that's 5x. Add 6, multiply by 2, subtract 8. Add 2. Everything is nice and easy so far. Add the second variable, that suit value, and I rearrange it using the commutative property so it is clear what I have to do in my head. So, for example, Lucas, what would I have to do in my head to figure out what card you had in this trick? Why would I subtract 8? It would have to say plus 8 at the end for me to subtract 8. What would I have to subtract? 6. And we have to make sure we understand that because that makes the trick easy for you to figure out what to do at the very end. I would have to subtract 6, the opposite of that add 6 at the very end. Okay? All right, let's go to card trick number 3. Do the algebra all the way through. Take a card. Add 7 to the face value, multiply by 2, subtract 15, multiply by 5, subtract 2. I'm flying through the algebra because that part should be easy up to that point. We add the suit value, that's a new variable. And remember, I typically rearrange using the commutative properties because it makes it a little more clear to me what I have to do. And so, what do I have to do in my head to figure out what card you had? Tell me, please. Let's try that again. What? Add 7. That should be very clear to you. So I had you do the card example this time. So whatever number you ended with, if you add 7 to that value, what you should be left with, the tens digit would be the card or the face value, and the ones digit should be the suit value. And hopefully that worked out for you. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, so just like yesterday, we are now going to create a card trick together where I'm going to randomly pick people and you're going to give me a step to do. I will take the easy one, and that is to take a card. So that is X here. Use the card that you have in front of you. I'm going to go with a 9 of hearts, which is what I just drew from the deck. And we're going to stick with the same face values. All right, so this is a 9 of hearts. And let's see here. What would you like to do?
Add 6 to face value.
Add 6 to face value. Okay. And I'm going to abbreviate face value with FV so I have enough room. Add 6 to face value. So if I'm adding 6, that would give me 15 here. And adding 6 here would give me X plus 6. Now remember, we need a number in base 10. At some point, we have to get to 10x. And this rule for the card trick will be the same as the rule for the number trick. We need at least one of every math operation, and we need at least 7 steps. Yes?
Multiply by 20.
Multiply by 20. I like that. Okay, so that gives me 300 here, and 20x plus 120. Our algebra will be the same. Unless you had a 9 as well, then your card example would be different unless you had a 9, of course. All right. What do you want to do?
Subtract 10.
Subtract, and I'm going to abbreviate because I don't have a lot of room here. Subtract 10, that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would give me 290 here. Excuse my sloppiness there. And that would give me 20x plus 110. All right. We do have to do division at some point. It does not have to be right now, but, you know, just keep that in mind. What would you like to do?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. So that would give me 145 here, and 10x plus 55. Now, the good thing is that We have the 10x that we desperately need because we need a number in base 10, okay? But we need 2 more steps, so we have to do 2 more things. And we probably might want to get this plus 55 to be a little more manageable. I mean, most of us could easily subtract 55 in our head, but if we're trying to look like a genius and we're trying to do this trick with somebody and we want to find the answer, whatever card they had, in a second or two, we might want to drop that down a little bit. So let's keep that in mind. What would you like to do? Subtract what?
By 5.
5? Subtract 5. All right. So that would give me 140 here and 10x plus 50 here. We have to do one more step. How about divide by 10? Would that be a good step? Yes or no?
No.
A couple of you were shaking your head yes. That would be a horrible step. Right? In a card trick, we have to end up with 10x plus or minus something. We have no choice. What should our next step be? Thank you. Add suit value. Some of you were thinking, I could tell, you were thinking about, okay, I'll maybe subtract 40. We're done almost. We just need to add suit value. And so my suit value, I'm going to go with the original suit values in alphabetical order. Clubs was 6, diamonds 7, hearts was 8, and mine is a 9 of hearts, so that's 148. And I'm going to go ahead and 10x plus, I'm going to go ahead and put the suit value next. And then I have plus 50. And hopefully yours is neater than mine. It's hard to write on this iPad with my finger. And so that's what we have. So now, in my head, I would need to do the opposite of what I see right here. So if I subtract 50, that would give me 98 right here. And that would